Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the virtual breakfast sessions. I'm Larry Sashin, and today we put together a great group to discuss the silence of the scam. We're discussing the difference between hospitality and tableside food delivery. But before we go into that, let's thank the people who are paying our bills. The ERA Group, Ed Flanagan and the ERA Group. Listen, you've worked very, very hard for your money, but I've been told by a very wise man, it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. And if you're interested in keeping more of that money, call Ed Flanagan and the ERA Group. Their people will sift through your invoices and contracts to make sure you're getting exactly what you paid for. Once again, ERA Group. Back to the show. The silence of the scams. Hospitality versus tableside delivery. Trevor, I was drawn to an article that you wrote on LinkedIn stating about a time you went to a restaurant and they put a QR code on your table. Can you go into that a little bit?
Oh my God, yes. QR codes, not in favourable of them at all. They served the purpose in COVID. They did the right job in COVID. But my point in QR codes, where's the service gone? There is no service. This is an excuse to actually have less employees in that restaurant or that pub. This is where it starts from. But then we go back to service charge. You charge me for service charge for something that I'm doing the work for. So the order of the food, the picking up of the food, dead against QR codes. Absolutely. It takes the skills away from the waiter that is actually serving. It takes those skills away. Where's the recommendation? Where's the dietaries? There's a whole process here that a QR code does not give you.
Okay, one thing, I'm still on my second cup of coffee here. Please tell the people who you are, Trevor.
My name is Trevor Walford. I do restaurant training. I go into operations that are having trouble with service, a little bit like in America. You know, the Gordon Ramsay type style thing, but I don't use the language. I go in, I look at what the restaurant manager's doing, I look at what the whole team is doing, and I pull all that together. But unfortunately, in today's market, we have so many young F&B managers and so many hotel managers sat in the chair without those skills. And that's not putting them down in any way at all. We've got to start somewhere, but they're afraid to ask for help. They are afraid to ask for help. And, since COVID, I've been doing training because I was working on the cruise ships. I've worked all around the world in hotels. I gone into training. Do you remember, if you might want to Google it, Trevor Walford, okay? What I did when I got made redundant, I stood on a railway station with a sign in front of me saying I wanted to work. And that went viral. And from there, I put that on LinkedIn and it had quite a response. So I thought to myself, okay, let's use who's going to employ me? I'm over 60. I don't want to go back into restaurant management, to be quite honest. So I'm using those skills now to train restaurant managers, supervisors. I have at least 23 people on my books now, which I mentor. These are people who have gone into the industry, and we do like an hour's chat, the problems they're having. But my training, if you employ me to come into your operation to do training, and your teams are thinking they're going to get a holiday, no. I don't take any flip charts. I don't take any overhead projectors. This is all acting out in training. And this is how people learn.
Are you in the UK or are you in the US?
I'm in the UK.
You're in the UK. So curious, what's the minimum wage in the UK?
I believe the minimum wage per hour in the UK, I think it works around about £10.
$12?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know what the minimum wage is in California?
No.
20 on the way to 30.
Yeah, and we're so behind the scenes.
So I love what you're doing, and I think it's great. But I have a guy over here who does COO work, and he's looking at a P&L, how does this training work into what it actually costs to operate and keep the lights on every day?
Guy, why don't you answer that, but tell them who you are first.
I'm Guy Salish, owner of Vision Financial Strategist. We do fractional CFO, COO, and outsourced accounting with an effort to turn the restaurant industry profitability positive. This is a very interesting topic. I think the industry since COVID has taken a lot of looking for quick fixes and short steps. And training is of paramount importance. We go into many clients and we find the same fundamental problems, just about every client. Their processes and procedures aren't in place. The employees aren't following the process and procedures, and there's no real ongoing training. But we have tried to lay technology in because technology during COVID came out and said, we're a solution. It's not a solution. It's simply a tool towards a solution. Training is the best investment a restaurant can make in growth because it can grow the top line and it can refine the flow through to the bottom line. But we overlook this because the theory is it costs money. But it's like marketing dollars. If you don't market your business, you're not going to get them sales. If you don't train people to sell, they don't know how to approach the table, the customer experience. I think right now they say that 70% of new clients to a restaurant don't return after the first visit, and I've seen it as high as 95%, depending on which article you read. Interestingly, it's the same common factors. It's the quality of the product, it's the ambience, it's the cleanliness of the place. But most important, what stands out is the experience with the interaction of people. Look, I'm a firm believer that there's technology can help in the right business model. You go into a grab and go, technology is a boon because it increases it decreases the time through the register, which means you can serve more customers.
Hey, Guy, I don't think it's an issue of can anymore. I think it's an issue of must. At $20 an hour minimum wage, I don't think there's any room for it. It has to happen. These folks have to know what they're doing.
And the problem is the more we separate the bridge between people, the interaction of people, the less intimate the dining experience becomes, and they don't upsell. Upselling is the greatest boon.
If I may interrupt you here, I went to a boutique hotel in the UK, just where I live. I went into the boutique hotel for an evening dinner. I can tell you now, that hotel, they call themselves boutique dining. I asked the waiter about a certain dish on the menu. He could not answer me. I asked that waiter about a certain wine. He could not answer me. Not once did I see the restaurant manager. Oh, I did actually see him. He was stood by the door, but did he once come and ask me how I enjoyed my meal? The whole process through that dining experience was absolutely terrible. The amount of time I put on LinkedIn about training, I can put on a post about my experience in a restaurant. It will get 50,000 views. It will get hundreds of comments on my experience. I put on LinkedIn about what I offer in training. Woof! It goes silent. The whole world goes silent. And these managers go silent when you mention that because they have to spend money. They have to spend money. And what they don't do is
money you spend.
If you give your teams proper training, proper upselling training, proper table procedure trainings, you will make money.
And then we turn around and we ask the customer to pay a service charge.
Exactly.
I went to Panera Bread to meet a client one day, and I go to the girl, let me have a coffee. She points at the cup. I pick the cup up. I record the transaction. She says, no tip. And I said, you got to explain to me here what you did. I mean, I picked the cup up. I'm pouring the coffee. I'm bringing it to the table. I'm clearing the table. Where is there an indication of service here other than the keystrokes you used to record the sale? Please, stop this nonsense. The restaurant industry can make money if they get away from this gut and balance it with intellect and look at the business as an entity and drill down and really understand what's happening. It's like profitability on a menu. How many people do you see doing profitability, menu price increases, or menu engineering is a new buzzword out there, where they're changing things, but they don't really understand what the cost is to put it on the plate.
Exactly.
Because somebody said it's $100 for the sirloin, I get 10 steaks at $10 a steak. It's not the right way to do this. The restaurant industry has to get back to the fundamentals of how the business works and stop this technology, the leap for technology. I think technology is very important in the right circumstances, in the right environment, applied properly on a business model that has the process procedure procedures and controls in place.
Agree.
I think training is of paramount importance because the more you train the people, the more customer interaction, and people want to talk to each other. There's nothing worse than going in and sitting down to a restaurant and spending $100 or $200 on two people and it being a transactional relationship with the business.
I agree with you.
You've lost me. You know, you had an opportunity to upsell. You had an opportunity to do so many things, which you don't have with a QR code, you don't have with the kiosk, and you don't have with a waiter that doesn't know how to talk to people and how to sell.
I had a comment on one of my LinkedIn profiles, and it said, "Young people don't want to learn." That is absolutely rubbish. What's happening in our industry at the moment? The operations they're working with, the management are not taking time with them. That's where the problem is. You know, interview stages are all done from an iPad, not what you want to do. I've got a young man on my books at the moment who's going in for interviews, etc. And I take him through the interview process. And the most important, I say to any young people that's going into a hotel or restaurant to work full time, ask them what training program they've got.
That's right.
Ask them what training program you are. You know, so often this industry is taking people on for just labor to fill in the rota. That's what ask what training you give when you go for an interview.
That's right. I think the problem doesn't stem from the bottom up. The problem is stemming from the top down.
Absolutely.
Management is not making the appropriate decisions. They're looking for shortcuts or quick decisions. And quick decisions have long-term impact. Once you lose that relationship with the customer, it's very hard to get me to come back to experience. So you automatically denigrate your top line, which follows through the flow through to the bottom line.
And I also want to make a point here that trainers that go into operations and do training must have at least the background in several hotels that they've worked in. I've seen so many lecturers in colleges and trainers on LinkedIn that post all these posts about training and standards, and yet when you look at their profile, there's very little experience there.
You know, and on top of that, you find training. It's not a factory. If your job in a factory is to tighten the nut and just tighten the nut, that's all they teach you. Tighten the nut, tighten the nut. If you have somebody that comes into a job and is not at least made aware of what the other jobs are, how do you support a person that you don't know what they're doing?
Exactly. I agree.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges also that we're making as managers in the restaurant business is that we often complain that this waiter is no longer a profession. We're making it no longer a profession by not training people and developing people in a skill that is very rewarding to be a waiter if you know how to do it in fine dining, but training has to be designed around the business model. You wouldn't want to do training for a fine dining restaurant in a casual steakhouse.
Absolutely.
They're different models, and you have to have the different types of experience to know how to apply the different training techniques for the entity that you're working in.
I wrote
but
this
it has to be maintained.
I wrote this
about. Hold on one second. It's interesting what you just said, because I was just at a restaurant this weekend, and it was an Italian restaurant, you know, not a place you'd expect a great waiter. And the waiter came down, and one of the people at the table was having a certain dish and ordered a glass of wine. And it was a cheap glass of wine. But the waiter said to him, hold on one second, let me bring you a sample of something. And he brought him a sample of the perfect wine that's sold by glass. And the guy said, bring this, bring this. Meanwhile, the glass was $3 more a glass, but he didn't care because he got the attention of the waiter, and everybody made out. Everybody.
So is that instinct to bring that wine? Is that a training instinct, or is that a I was born to score goals instinct? Which is it?
All of the above. All of the above. You have to find the right person, number one,
with the right drivers,
and the person at the top has got to take time, because nobody is born knowing wines. You have to be taught, and obviously he was, and this place is booming all the time. So where do we go? We know we're talking about the problem. Where do we go from here? We have a problem. We've identified the problem. How do we fix it?
I think that restaurants need to reevaluate their performance. They need to stop this gut thing and stop saying that EBITDA is the most important number, because EBITDA is completely a assumed number. I can make it be anything I want it to be. What you need to do is go in and reevaluate your financials and figure out where you can get resources to invest in the areas in your business that are going to drive your top line and manage the flow through to improve the bottom line. And all that comes down to proper marketing and proper training. Out training in front of house, back of house, receiving, dishwashing, all those areas, you bleed. And if the waiter isn't upselling coffee, isn't saying, you got to try this dessert, you had a phenomenal, you've got to try this tiramisu. It's amazing. If they don't have that passion inside, you've got the wrong people working for you, because they're depleting your sales.
But that's
why not
interactive training to show them how to do it?
That's
you
right.
know, I wrote this article on LinkedIn about SOP manuals. Okay, every operation has an SOP manual. But
they're not following. They're on the shelf though with dust on.
But they're on the shelf, you know. And I said in this opera, I could do training in your hotel and work around your SOP manual. Does that make sense? So whatever your FOP menu is trying to say, I will build my training around that menu on what you would like in your operation. But I asked a waiter online who I was doing training with once, how often do you look at your SOP manual? He says, what's an SOP manual? Yeah. It was like I was asking for cream cheese. He didn't know.
Because it's there to protect against litigation.
That's exactly.
It's not there to it's not there to operate. It's not there
and
to
this is why managers are covering. This is why managers are saying to me on LinkedIn, they don't do training because they have their SOP manuals, and it's disgusting. It really is disgusting. You know, they're not taking an interest in these young people, and it's shocking me.
Is it not seen? But when was the last time it was updated? If you have an SOP manual from 2016, the world has changed, and if you don't update it, you're in big trouble.
Larry, how many businesses do you know give out an employee handbook when you're hired and ask you to sign the last page after you've read it? Most people take the back page out, they sign it and hand it to you. You can find the manual in their locker, or worst case than that, in the garbage. The business needs to get back to the fundamentals. It needs to have processes and procedures. There's a reason the industry was so successful manually, because you had to follow things to get it right. And today you can't go top down. You've got with processes and procedures. You've got to set the foundation for people to do it the way your business needs it done to generate both the operational and financial results. So neither one is more important than the other. You know, if you allow a chef to drive your business, your finances may suffer because we're thinking about the art, the customer experience, the plate. If you allow a finance person to run the business, we're going to teach you to breathe through a smaller tube. But most likely the business will suffer because customer experience will suffer, most likely.
But accountants are running the business.
Well, they are, because we're forcing the issue, but they have to come together like the gears in the back of a watch.
Exactly.
The two sides have to learn to talk and to work together, and that's what's not happening. So you have businesses where the owner says just do this, and they live with the financial results. I mean, I've done business plans for people who wanted to open second and third businesses where you ask where the financials are and they don't have them. I said, well, how do you know how you're doing? Because I have money in the bank, I'm happy. I said, yeah, well, you're not the right client for me, so let's you got to find somebody else to do this, because you can't operate this way. You're not going to succeed.
So let's go through a scenario. My father ran this business since 1974 and passed it on to me, and I'm doing everything that he did. I know I need help. Where do we start?
Sell the business fast. Get out.
Yeah.
What's that story? How do you
get out?
How do you make $1 million in the restaurant business? Start with $2 million. The restaurant business can be extremely rewarding and successful. We've seen it. The challenge is, though, creating a platform that works. And if your father passed the business down, it worked under his scenarios with what he was doing. But the economy's changed. When I was starting out of culinary school, we told people what the foods were. We told them where it came from. We told them everything about it. They didn't know anything. Today, there are people coming into restaurants that know more about the food that we're serving than we do. It's like a completely different market. And if you don't adapt to that market, then you're going to lose. Because if you tell somebody this is American lamb and you're serving Australian lamb, people can tell the difference.
For sure.
So you have to be able to, you have to train people, and you have to have processes that are managed from the top down and lived from the top down. I can't say to people, follow these procedures and I go do what I want to do. And that's where the challenge is. We walk into many businesses where the employees are told to do A, B, and C, but the management team is doing D, E, and F because it's easier for them at the time.
This goes back to the story start at the top.
That's right.
So how do you get, this is the way it's been done for 30, 40 years. How do you change that mindset? Because that's a killer.
I think you have to have the team around you. If you don't have the necessary skill sets, and many people don't. I mean, I know how to cook professionally. I know finance. That's not everybody. So if I don't understand finance intimately, I need to find the right people to surround me, the right people in the right seats on the bus, not just a body because you need a body. And you can develop the environment.
To want to change. They've got to want to change. Yeah.
So where does that want for change come from? Does it come from the response from a happy customer? Like where does that come from?
I think it comes from the owners that want to change the business, but I also think that you have employees that want to change, and they can drive change in your business if you recognize individual employees for their individual skill sets and capabilities, and you work with it. I mean, many times in a restaurant, it's not the chef that's coming up with a prize-selling dish. It's one of the guys in the line that said, everybody come up with a dish, we'll select the best one. It doesn't have to be the top down, but it has to be a cohesive team that understands that everybody can bring something to the table. And if you have people that aren't bringing things to the table, that they maybe do not belong on that team.
I agree.
It's that time again that we have to start wrapping up. So listen, I'm going to go around the room in a minute, and I want you to give your last little tidbit of information.
So I have one more question, Larry.
Go ahead, Fred.
Hold on. So guys, how much should a training program cost, and how do you budget for this, et cetera? Is it a percentage of sales? What's the way to look at this?
From a financial perspective, it has to be integrated into the overall mix. But I don't think there's a standard amount that you can say spend 5% on training, because if the Rainbow Room or Windows in the World, we had very, very, very intensive training, where I've gone to other very high-end restaurants similar to Windows, and the training was different because the model was different. So it's not something you can say that it's going to be, good food cost is 30% in this type of this category of restaurant.
That's a funny answer for you, because you run the business side and you act as a CFO. That's a very peculiar answer.
But isn't that the same as running a car? If you have a Porsche and you put 86 octane gas in there, it's going to sputter and kick, and you've got to put premium. So it depends on your business. You have to put in the maximum no matter where you are.
But I'm asking how much you're going to spend on gas and tolls right now is what I'm asking.
But you can figure that out. I mean, you go to buy a car, you look at the sticker on the windshield, and it says this is what, based on 15,000 miles a year, this is what the gas fuel cost should be. And it's the same thing in when we do financial projections. If we need to have a trainer there 7 days a week because the business is open 7 days a week, and you want to do 1 hour's training before each meal, then you have to have the resources to do it if you're bringing a third party in. Otherwise, you need to hire the right individuals, and that may mean you have to pay more in salaries and wages for the right people. There's no shortcut to this business.
We have guys who we talk to who don't know what the profit margin is on the things that are on their menu. And now you're asking them to figure out what the profit margin is on an investment in training. That's where I'm trying to take them.
Fred, that's exactly what I'm saying. You have to have the right people in the right seats. You have to have people that really understand. Look, you can hire a bookkeeper and they're going to mechanically move data. Or you can hire somebody that really understands intimately the restaurant business, and they can look at an invoice and say, wait. Those blueberries that are in your system, you set up as 12 pints, you got 24 6 ounce. What's going to hit the plate is a different cost. But you have to have the people that understand what they're doing to know to ask that question. So it's about the right people in the right seats on the bus.
Got it.
It's going to cost you one way or another. It's either going to cost you in training or it's going to cost you in sales. And you've got to weigh that. And I imagine, Trevor, how do you help somebody do that? Figure that out.
Look, I'm not a big company. I'm a solo trainer. I don't have all the logos or the big offices. I work basically from home. If somebody calls me, if most trainers in the UK, they will go to an operation and they do a week's training, they would charge roughly about £8,000. I'm just giving you a ballpoint figure. I don't come anywhere near that mark. I just love what I do, okay? What I would go in and I would have a telephone call or a conversation with the hotel manager, the operations manager, or the F&B manager, and I would say, what do you want? What kind of training you were? Then I would come up with a figure, and this figure is pretty low actually, and you will probably see by some of my LinkedIn posts when I offer my training, it's not expensive. You don't need a bank loan to bring me in. It's very cheap because I have a passion for what I do. Okay, I have a passion for what I do. But most people don't want to invest. They just don't want to invest in the UK in training. But they will invest on putting their head office on a weekend party conference in London. They will invest on that, but when it comes down to their people, they won't invest in the training.
It's interesting you say that.
Where do we break even? And this is why I made this choice on LinkedIn to speak out. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. You know, I've seen managers on LinkedIn posting on LinkedIn, oh, we're at a golfing weekend, and you've refused my training because you didn't have the budget, but you're on a golfing weekend? Come on, managers, you need to start investing in your people. There's always room for money in training. There's always room.
It's priorities. Well, this time we have to start saying goodbye. So
it's a pleasure.
All right. So before we do, what I want to do is thank people that are paying our bill. Once again, the ERA group, call the ERA group and Ed Flanagan. They will sift through your invoices and contracts and make sure you're getting what you pay for. Thanks, Ed. And let's go around the room and give that one little tidbit of information that people need to remember this session. Guy, start off, please.
The most important thing I think I could say at this point is for people to balance the passion for the business with the intellect for the business and understand that the art and the business have to come together like the gears of the back of a watch for the business to work properly. You need to understand your financials. You need to understand EBITDA, but you also need to understand what's on the balance sheet and what's going on in the balance sheet. And you need, more importantly, to understand your cash flow. Understanding this data, you can make the appropriate budgeting and forecasting decisions to afford the proper marketing and training. And I cannot overstate the value of training because it drives the top line, and if it's properly done, it can also drive the flow through to achieve a better bottom line.
Okay, Trevor.
Very short for me. Training. Follow my post on LinkedIn. You will see my passion for this training. When people say to me there is no room in the budget, I would say no, there is plenty of room in a budget for training. Make time for your people, because you will not make a profit in your hotel or restaurant unless you give your people training. And we're skipping training too much. It is going out the window. Most people say to me, I am old school. Old works in service.
It works throughout the entire business cycle.
Exactly. I'm so fed up. People on LinkedIn saying to me, you are old school. You know, old school work.
Wear it like a crown. Wear it
Sorry?
like a crown.
Exactly.
Wear it like a crown.
Exactly.
Old school got us here. So
absolutely.
Right. All right. Fred.
Way too much focus on social media and on marketing on somebody who hasn't come into your restaurant yet, and nowhere near enough focus on getting it right with the people that you have that are working with you and the customer base that you have. And that this is what this is all about.
It costs a lot less to develop and build a current customer that does to try and get a new customer in.
Yeah, you get one chance. I don't, people tell me when I go to restaurants and I'm not going back there, and they say, why? And I say this. He says, you got to give them another chance. No, you don't.
No.
There is 40 other people that want my money.
First impressions count.
There's 40 other people that want my money and are willing to make me happy to get it. I don't want to sound like a hard ass on this, but yes, that's the truth. So listen, we've gone over a lot of great points, but it all boils down once again to training. If the man or woman on the top doesn't care about, eye contact or the smile or the conversation that goes in there, neither does anybody that works for them. So it starts at the top. So Mr. Owner, Ms. Owner, start thinking. The smile will get you your business going. So, you're going to be back in next week. So I hope you come see us. And, I'd like to thank everybody here for giving us their time. And I only have
Larry, where do I send my bill to?
To Fred. Give it to Fred.
Profit.
All right.
Trevor, you should have gotten the credit card up front.
So you lost your chance.
It's been a pleasure actually talking with you three guys. It was a real pleasure.
Not the last time, Trevor. Not the last time.
Yes, we'll be back to you.
You'll be back.
Only have two things left to say. Everyone, stay positive, test negative. We'll see you next week. You have
pleasure
a good one.
Indeed, Larry.
Bye
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.